Hecate is one of the brand new mages exclusive to Smite 2, and I gotta be real, she's one of my favorite gods Smite has ever made. She's a squishy, immobile caster that plays in the backline while picking and choosing moments to engage. She plays very well with like a strong jungler or support, but is super vulnerable to ganks and dives, and especially early game, she's a very weak laner. Navigating the early game with care and exploding people with absurd damage late game is a thrill on Hecate. I don't know how to say her name, I'll be honest. And utilizing her kit to its fullest potential takes a lot of practice. Her first ability is Triplicate Form, which fires a clone of Hecate in a straight line skill shot. Every time you cast the ability, the function of the ability alternates. The first form is a blue colored power form which deals damage and applies a mark to any enemy's hit. If a god hits a target who's marked, it deals additional damage, and this additional damage can be reprocced over and over again until the mark goes away, and it's a big part of your early clear and objective burn. The alternate is her purple-colored Hex form, which deals damage and mesmerizes any target's hit, effectively stunning them until they take another source of damage. You can use this to self-peel yourself, cancel channels like Fenrir Brutalizer Box Burp, or you can use it to all but guarantee that your ult or your second ability, Spell Eater, hits. Speaking of Spell Eater, her second ability is also split into two parts. The first cast creates a sigil high in the air, which has a huge AoE. It stays there indefinitely until you recast Spell Eater, which, while the sigil is in the air, any ability cast, friend or foe, inside the circle, grants a charge to Spell Eater, which increases the second cast of Spell Eater's damage by 10%. And at a max of 12 charges, the base damage and scaling is increased by a massive 220%. When you reactivate Spell Eater, it calls down like an arcane meteor or like a blast of energy that deals a ton of damage in a very small circle. It is literally just damage, but it's a whole lot of it. Now you'd think it's like, oh, it's kind of sucky for your agency that you have to wait for other gods to cast abilities to meaningfully charge your Spell Eater, but that's where your third ability comes in. Repel Magic is a super, super good ability. It's not very flashy, but you use it so much. Repel Magic targets yourself or an allied god, granting them a shield and casting an explosion around the target that deals a substantial amount of damage. In addition, using the ability at all on yourself or an ally grants you movement speed. So not the ally that you target, but no matter what, if you use your 3, you get the movement speed. And importantly, it also grants 3 charges to your Spell Eater while it's active. Typically to clear a wave early, something that Hecate struggles with quite a lot, you're going to be casting your 2 to bring up the sigil, then throw your 1 to hit all the mini waves, and then use your 3 hitting minions with it if you can. It's kind of hard because you're positioning. You die really easy to gank, so sometimes you need to be more careful than not. But if you can hit your 3 on the wave, that's great. And then you cast your 2 to finish off the rest of the minions. And this would give you a 4-stack Spell Eater, which does a good amount of damage to minions. Hecate's ult is Open the Gates, which summons 2 massive portals, they're huge. One underneath Hecate and the other one at a targeted location. After a delay, it will deal a large amount of damage, stun enemies, and teleport them to the opposite side that they were hit. So you can use it to get people off of you, but you can also use it to bring enemies to you and your team. After you cast it, 2 smaller portals will remain on the ground that you can press the interact key to teleport between them. It makes you untargetable while you're teleporting. You use this for some really sick outplays, and I really love it. Finally, I did leave out her passive, which more or less makes no sense with the rest of her kit, but it's not useless, I guess. Her passive is Mythic Ritual, which has 2 effects. They both require you to interact with the target, the first one being any Titan, Tower, or Phoenix, and when you channel this, it buffs, or any allied Titan, Tower, or Phoenix, but when you channel this, it buffs the targeted structure, giving allies a small amount of health and mana regen while they're inside of it. And the second effect, which is much more exciting, is after an allied god gets a kill, for about 30 seconds after that kill, you can interact with the god to give them a pretty substantial strength and intelligence buff for 5 minutes, but you also receive the buff. So if your jungler comes to lane and you guys duo kill and you give the kill to the jungler, which, you don't always want to give your jungler the kills, but sometimes they get it. You can buff the jungler, which gives you and your jungler a 5-minute strength and intelligence buff, which is quite a lot early game. It's not as impactful late game, but it's a good chunk of stats. You can't stack buffs, but everyone can have one. Only one buff, though, can be active on a tower at the same time, so it's not like you can go through and buff all of the towers on the map. But yeah, you are not overriding your previous ally's buff by buffing a new ally. So whenever you have the chance, you should buff each ally. Whenever you see it puts a little sigil over their head, I'll try to put video on it, but it puts a little sigil over their head that you can, to show that you can buff them. And you should use that when you can, but it's not game changing per se, but it is pretty helpful to have. Regardless, there was the Hecate guide. If you have any questions or anything, be sure to ask in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. If you have any ideas at all, here's an example build for you. It's probably the only build you are ever going to go on this character until items are changed. But if anything, I would go to Smite 2.live/builds and copy a build from there or something like that. You know, tracker.gg works, Smite source works. Just if you need an updated build, if this video is kind of old, I would go there. Aside from that, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe and all that fun stuff, and have a great day.